Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we'll set this Taanit daf Beis. We'll begin by the Mishnah. Me'amasai maskirin gvurus geshamim. From what time do we begin mentioning the strength of rain? Rashi says, Sher mashiv haruach geshem. When it comes to the second bracha, Machayim Eisim, when we mention mashiv haruach geshem, when does it begin? So we have a machlokas. Rabbi Lezer Omer miyom tov harishon shel Chag, that we start mentioning Mashiv Ruach on the first day of Sukkot. Yeshua Omer miyom tov achron shel Chag. We do it on the last day of Sukkot, or Shmini Atzeres. So Amar Rabbi Yeshua, so he said the following: Hoyel ve'ein hagashomim el simin klal b'chag. We know we don't want it to rain on Sukkot; it's a curse, as Rashi brings down the Gemara Masechta Sukkah on Daf Chav Ches. Me'amasei muter lefanais. When is a person allowed to leave a sukkah? When it rains so much that it spoils the food. Michelle, and he says the mashal eved shabo limzay kais rabo. It's a parable to a servant who is trying to give food to his master. The shabachol kitin alpanav, and he throws it in his face. I don't want your service. So it's a klala for it to rain. So lamahu maskir, says the Mishnah, why would you mention Mashiv Ruach Geshem in the beginning of Sukkot when it's a klala? So Amol Rabbi Lezer Apani Loy Marti Lisha El Haskir. There's a difference between asking, which is the same Talmatar, and over here we're not asking Hashem for rain. The first three brachos of the Amida, we don't ask Hashem for anything. We mention the strength and power of Hashem. We praise Hashem, and therefore there's nothing wrong with mentioning it then, even though it's the beginning of Sukkot. Therefore, again, Afanilu Amarti Lisha El Haskir Mashiv Ruach Geshem Bonaso in its time. If it's just simply in order to be able to acknowledge Hashem's greatness, so then we should always mention it. It says Rashi, am I placing b'Pesach? Why do we stop saying it at any point? We should always say it. So he says that a person is not supposed to be asking for rain except during the normal rain time, which we'll discuss exactly when that is. When do we start asking? Of course, we know the English date of December 4th. A person who is the Chazan, B'yom Tov Achron Shel Chag, on the last day of Sukkot, Ha'acharoin Maskir, the person at the end mentions it, Harishon Eno Maskir, but not the first one. In other words, the Achron is the Baal Musaf, and the Rishon is the Baal Shachar. So we don't start saying, according to this opinion, Mashiv Ruach Geshem, until the Yom Tov Achron Shel Chag, which is our minhag, and it's the Baal Musaf. Of course, that's when, during that time, for Pesach and for Sukkot, we say Tfilas Tal, Tfilas Geshem. Yom Tov Rishon Shel Pesach, on the first day of Pesach, Rishon Maskir v'Achron Eno Maskir. So again, there's that switch between the first day of Pesach, that we continue to say Mashiv Ruach Geshem, and then we stop. Some people say nothing, some people say Mord Atal. Let's see the Gemara. Tana Hechakoi de Katani Me'amasai, which is exactly the same language. The very first question in Masechtas Brachos. So how can we just start mentioning Me'amasai from when? Which, as Rashi says, Machal de Pshitale de Haitana de Chayav no Haskir. It's clear you're supposed to say it, but how do we know that there's any Chayav to mention Hashem's power of rain? So Tana Hasam Koi, our Tana bases it on the following statement: Tani Maskirin Gvurus Geshamim B'Tches Hamesim. We mention it in Tches Hamesim. This is already something we learned. We already learned in Masechtas Brachos on Daf Lamed Gimel. Yishmalim Beberachas Hashana. We also in Berachas Hashanim, in Bracha of Mevarach Hashanim, we say V'tein Talmata Bracha. V'Avdal B'Chaynin Adoas. The Katani now for over here Miyamasa Maskirin Gvurus Geshamim. So now we mention it, so it's not that it's something which we never learned, right? We were in the middle of learning Daf Yomi. We only learned it just less than 2 years ago. So certainly we should remember that, right? So Velisni Hosam, the question is, why isn't it learned over there? Maishna de Shavki ad Hocha. Why didn't we wait until now to mention it? Elatana Rosh Hashanah Tzalik. Actually, we don't have to go that far back, all the way to Masechtas Brachos. We can go to the Masechta we just finished learning yesterday. Because it talks about the different Rosh Hashanahs, and one of the times in which we're judged is on Sukkot, and we're judged on water. Since we're judged on water on Sukkot, and it mentions that over there, not in the last parak of Masechta Rosh Hashanah. It's toward the beginning of the Masechta. Nonetheless, it's still in the previous Masechta. So that's a little bit closer. The listening maskirin al hageshamim. Why does it just ask the question? Why doesn't it say maskirin al hageshamim? Just say it that way. My gevuras geshamim. Why do we add the extra word of gevuras, the power of rain? Just mention, when do we start mentioning rain? Amar Rabbi Yochanan she yardim b'gevura, because rain comes down mightily. Shneimar oisig gedolos adem cheker, that he does greatness without beyond count. V'niflois ad mispar, and wonders beyond number. Uksiv hanaisin matar al pnei eretz. It says also in that vicinity that he gives rain upon the ground. V'shleich mayim al pnei chutzos, and he brings water upon the different locations. So my mashma samarabba marshil asa cheker cheker nibriyasa sha'olam. We have exer shava. Ksiv hach, it's written over here. Oisig san cheker. Ksiv hasam over there. How yadated, is it not known? Yimo shamata lukeo olam Hashem. If you do not listen, bari katzos haaretz lo ya'oyev lo yagia. One who is not weary or worn out. Ein cheker l'tfunaso. There's no cheker to his understanding. Ksiv, and the pasuk says, maybe naharim b'koichai nezer b'gvura, that he prepares the mountains with his strength and girds them with strength. Okay, but how do we know it's supposed to be done in davening? You're supposed to serve Hashem and to serve Him with all of your heart. So what is an avodah which is in the heart? So is it tefillah. Afterwards it says, so because this is what we say in the Shema, it talks about loving Hashem and serving Hashem, and we serve Hashem by davening to Hashem, and then afterwards it talks about rain, and therefore it's logical that we mention Matar Malkoish, rains, during the Shemona Esrei. Rabbi Yochanan, Gimel Maftachot B'Yad HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There are three keys that are in Hashem's hand, that were never given over to a shliach. V'Elhein Maftech Shel Geshamim, the key of rain. Maftech Shel Chaya, the key of childbirth. Maftech Shel Tches Mesim, of the resurrection of the dead. Maftech Shel Geshamim, L'chsev Yiftach Hashem L'chas Oitzara Taivas Hashemayim L'osis Matar Tzavitai, that Hashem is the one that will open up the heavens to give rain in its time. Maftech Shel Chayim and L'chsev Yisrael came as Rachel V'Yishmael Leha, as we continue to Beis and Beis, that Hashem opened up Rachel's womb. V'Yishmael Elokim V'Yiftach Rachman, again he opened up her womb. Maftech Shel Tches Mesim and Amdechsev Yadata Ki Hashem Ki Ani Hashem B'Pischei Kivurei Seichem. So that Hashem is going to open up the graves by Tches Mesim. But Merava and Eretz Yisrael Amri, they added a fourth one. Af Maftech Shel Parnasa. Of course, the very important pasuk of Rashi, of that it's found in Ashrei, rather. It's Rav Yochanan, my time loika chashiv l'ha. So the question, why is it Hashem is the one that will cause parnasa? And the answer is, it's really the same thing as geshamim, because when it rains, that's what causes a person who has a field, is engaged in agriculture, that this is how they're going to survive. Okay, let's look at question 11. Menolan de maskirin givoras geshamim b'tefillah. The answer is, it says avdu b'chol avavachem, and which avod is believed, that's tefillah, and then immediately after it says v'nosati matar artzachem. Okay, let's continue. Rabbi Lezer oimer miyom tev rishon shulchan. So it's a machlokas. Do we mention Mashmer Rachman Geshem the first day of Sukkot or the last day of Sukkot? So he boilhu. Rabbi Lezer mehecha gamrula. How does he learn this out? Why would he think that that's what you should do by starting on the first day? Does he learn out? Is it melulav gamrula or minusach hamayim gamrula? Does he learn out from a lulav, the mitzvah lulav, or from the nisach hamayim, the water libations? Melulav gamrula malulav b'yayim av haskar b'yayim. That just like the lulav is taken at the first day, so too when it comes to this. O dilmim nisach hamayim gamrula. Man nisach hamayim urta. When it comes to nisach hamayim that was at night, look at Rashi. Kid ashachan mistak the sukkah. In the fifth parak of mistak the sukkah, shemamalan hakli mayim when nisach hamayim b'layla. They would actually gather up the water at night. So af haim nisach hamayim nami yochel nasach b'layla. So the Amar Mar min chasam v'niskehem afil b'layla. So af haskar ma'urta. So maybe that means therefore you're supposed to start saying it at night. So at what point do you begin Masha Berach Menagashim? Do you start during the day, according to him, on the first day of Sukkot, or at the first night? So Tashma, the Yomi Rabbi Avo lo lamdu Rabbi Lezer el malulav. Going out from lulav, therefore you understand that it only begins on the first day. Igdi Yomi Rabbi Avo Gamar Gamrila. Then he had a tradition, not that he learned it out. That lo lamdu el malulav. The Ika de Amri Masnisa Shamileh. That he actually saw a statement which is how he was able to derive it. So what was that? The sign. Al Geshamim Rabbi Lezer Omer Mishas Netilas Lulav. So therefore, that's how he saw it, very clear, which obviously not the evening before. Rabbi Shua Omer Mishas Hanachasai. It's actually the time in which you put the lulav down, which is, as Rabbi says, Miyoyim. Interestingly enough, not that we start saying on Shmini, the Achrain Shulchag, but rather on the seventh day. Amr Lezer Hoyel v'arbas minin halol einu boim el ratzai salmayim. Since the whole purpose of the lulav is in the esrog, which all water-related vegetation, so, and therefore it's in order to be able to ask and hope Hashem will give us water. They all need water. So too the entire world needs water, and therefore it's a good time to start mentioning rain. So again, as the Mishnah said, it's a siman kalala rain. It doesn't mean to ask Hashem for rain, because of course we don't want to ask Hashem for rain in the middle of Sukkot. El haskir, only to mention it. Just like in Tchias Mesim you're mentioning it, but it's only going to happen in its time. But technically, maybe you should think that you should say it all the time, even though it's only going to happen at a certain time. Interestingly enough, according to this, therefore, technically, according to this opinion, if you would actually mention Masha Barach Menagashim at any point, Maskir, you said it. In other words, you didn't do anything too wrong, because the truth is, just like Tchias Mesim, it's only going to happen in one period of time, but nonetheless we mention it every single day. So too, if you say Masha Barach Menagashim, Maskir, you said it. Rabbi Omer Ani Misha Shemasik L'Sheila. I say it's the time that you're mafsik l'sheila, the time in which you finish asking Hashem for rain. Kach mafsik l'skara. That's also the time which you should stop mentioning rain. Says Rashi, Shabbat Pesach, on the first day of Pesach, poisek meloimer sein talmatar, poisek melahaski v'ers geshamim. V'hashlo masas amrit imbo lahaski kol shana kula maskir, yelabimosachama. Only in the summer you can say that. Einu masker hoyel ve'einu zmanat. That's not its time. Af b'chag einu masker hoyel v'loi simin brachahim. So again, it's interesting. Of course, what we paskin like that when we stop saying the same Talmud of bracha on Pesach, we go back to the same bracha. That also is when we no longer say Masha Baruch Nagashim. So it's interesting. We have an opinion on the first. We already mentioned the seventh. We have the 8th. This is the second day of Sukkot. We'll see why. The second. It's almost every opinion every day you can think of. 1, 2, 6, 7. Okay, and Shemini says, which is what our Mishnah said on the last day of Sukkot and Shemini Atzeres. Hacharin Maskir. The Baal Musaf mentions it. Harisha Ena Maskir. So you only start on the last day by Musaf. B'yom Tavishan Shal Pesach, Harisha Maskir, Achar Ena Maskir. As the Mishnah said. Okay. Now Shabbat Karmeli Rabbi Lezer Rabbi Yeshua. Well, Rabbi Lezer said something very good to Rabbi Yeshua, right? So seemingly it's a good question. So Rabbi Yeshua Bishlam Tchias Mesim Maskir Dekul Yoima. We mention it all the time. Tchias Mesim Zimnehu because all the time is its day, is its zman. It could happen any day. It could happen in the winter, in the summer. El Geshomim kol emas liatin zmanehi. Is it true that we should also say Mashiach Geshem? It's not true. It's not the zman all the time for it to rain. It's not always good. But nan yotzin Nisan, the yardu Geshomim simin kolahim. Once it's already Nisan and it rains, that's a simin kolah. Shenemar halo katsir chitim hayoy. So now let's understand this machlokas. Why the second day? My time in Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. This time Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira oimer nemer b'sheni. On the second day it says v'nische hem with a mem. V'nemar b'shishi. On the sixth day it says unsacheha, which again, because of that different wording, which shows there's an extra yud. V'nemar b'shvi on the seventh day kamishbatam. Over there it says, instead of kamishbatam with a mem sofit. So we see Hari Mem Yud Ma Emem. Very interesting. You can read this a million times and never see this, but in the actual Karbanos, it alludes to the word Mayim. Hari Kan Mayim. Mekan Remez L'Nisach HaMayim in the Torah. That gives a hint that there's Nisach HaMayim from the Torah. Why the second day do you want to start? Because it's hinted on the second day. It's not a hint on the first day. The fact that this hint begins on the second day is telling that's when you start mentioning rain. Why the sixth? Because it has the yud over there of mayim. And the fact it says it there also, why it sounds like a double language. So it's over here that we start having the allusion and the mentioning of both libations. We always do a nisach hayayin among the about when we bring karbanos, we bring also the libation of wine. But in addition to that, on Sukkot we have nisach hamayim, and the fact that's what's alluding to in sacheha. And of course, nisach hamayim is not just starting on that day, but the fact that it's hinted nisach hamayim on that day. Therefore, that's when you start mentioning. Maybe they're talking about not water but wine. So several when it says unsacheha. So several can be the maya. Here's a hint. So it's not talking about you bring an extra wine libation. The fact that it says mayim mem yud mem is talking about water. So 1 second. He said, well, Yehuda ben Beseira nemekamase. So why don't you hold like him? The answer is Sabar Mikiva. Again, it's Dafka on the sixth day, and therefore that's the reason why he feels that the drasha is to tell you that you start saying Mashiach Hashem on the sixth day. I'm going to stop here. Question 12. More than one answer. 4 shitas. Yom Tov Rishon Shulchan, the first day. Yom Tov Achron, which we said by Musaf. The second day, or possibly the sixth day. TA20. Not sure we did this. Okay. Whether you learn out from Nisach HaMayim or from Lulav. But Nafkamina, do you need to start mentioning it the night before or already only starting during the day? And he ended up saying that we learn out from Lulav, and therefore you only start mentioning Mashiach Geshem on the first day, just like the first day you take the Lulav and not at night. Adkan.